All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to One Soccer. I'm your host for today, Josh Deming, joined by my colleague, Alex Gonge-Ruzic. And we are here today, Alex, to discuss Canada's 2-1 victory over the United States. It was their first win on U.S. soil since 1957, and they played them off the park. One of the most complete performances I've seen from this team since Jesse Marsch has taken over. We had a little stumble there after that goal, which was probably pretty avoidable. Probably offside, at least from what I've seen, Alex. I think it was offside, but we saw the match out, something we've struggled to do in recent time. And I got to say, it feels pretty good to walk away with that result. Alex, let me know how you are doing. But the first question I have for the chat, if you guys are joining us, is drop a like, say hello, and let me know what your biggest takeaway was from that 2-1 victory. So, Alex, over on the West Coast, how you doing today?
Good. Sunny outside. It's been a good weekend of local football. Tucked into some CPL Friday, Saturday. Yesterday we had some Canada, had some Whitecaps, had some our local leagues kicked off in Vancouver, so a lot of people were playing too. It was a good time just for footy in Vancouver. But this Canada-US game was great. I mean, more than a friendly, right? Canada definitely were playing like it wasn't a friendly. And what does it say about the US? Just watching the game, like, what's going through these guys' minds? Like all week, Jesse Marsch, keeps getting asked. He even goes on the podcast saying, "Oh, these players, their mentality." I feel like that's a wake up call for these guys. And then Canada goes out and just outruns them, wants it more than them, is all over the park. I know it's just a friendly, but also like again after the Copa America they had where they were struggling to get up that kind of emotion, that kind of energy. You're kind of wondering, and more so Pochettino sitting there and like, what am I getting myself into with this group? So strike one for Canada in terms of this Jesse Marsch versus USA era.
I want to start there because I saw a lot of that on X yesterday from a lot of different people, and some were saying, it is just a friendly. United States don't have a proper head coach in right now. But I kind of want to focus on the fact that they simply were not up for it. But like, honestly, it took like 2-3 minutes during this match for me to realize whatever Jesse said to his team, or maybe the team just obviously respect Jesse and probably know that he wants this game, but everybody looked up for it. The way that this team attacked the U.S. was incredible, and the U.S. looked so confused, so lost, didn't have a game plan, and were under so much pressure throughout. I mean, that first half was something else. It could have been 2-3-0, and it's a shame, and we'll get into that a little bit. But the first thing I noticed throughout the game, Alex, was the press. And right away, I'm like, this looks like a club team. The way that they're pressing, and it started from the front. Kyle Larin, Jonathan David, Ahmed, Schwaner, Eustachio, and Schaffelberg were all pressing. And every time it seemed like a U.S. player starting out from the back had the ball. There was 3-4 white shirts at them. Tim Ream had a disastrous performance, and I don't know what his passing record was, but he was just under immense pressure that he just couldn't simply play out of the back. And I do want to focus on Schwaner. Sorry for going in a circle here, but I've said many times I think that he could be a Jesse Marsch player. So I kind of want to highlight his performance because Ahmed had a great day. So did Bomito. So did David. But what was your thoughts on Schwaner? He obviously took the leap over to Europe. I think he can really suit this team. And this was a chance without Kone there for him to show what he can really do in that midfield. And I was really impressed from what I saw.
Yeah, I mean, friendly is when you're heading into it. What are we always looking for, right? We're looking for good team performances, right? That's probably priority one. You're looking for good individual performances. Of course, you win, you're happy, right? You don't want to lose, but ultimately it's the first two. And I think to your point about the first one, the team performance was great. Like, it's really looking at the 15, 16 players who were on the field. I don't think any of them had a bad performance. Great. But yeah, Mathieu Schwaner for me was definitely among the top. Like, what I like about him is that you get security in possession. Like, he's pretty good on the ball, good enough to play in that pivot to help distribute. He was 5 out of 5 on long balls. He had some great balls forward. He helps, create some key offensive opportunities. Great. But what really stood out for me was defensively, like how aggressive he could play, the way he would step up, and how he kept running, right? Like, he played all the way until like the 94th minute. He was just running and running and running. You thought, oh, okay, that's something a bit different for Canada, because when you have him and Eustachio together, it felt like they could press a little bit more. They could be just that bit more aggressive. And by comparison, when you had Ismail Kone alongside Eustachio, that pair was good defensively. Like, Canada was good this summer defensively, But the one difference is with the Kone is very good at his duels, at his like, defensive action, right? Like he's good when he just sits there and then he pounces because he's so long, so lanky. He knows how to stick the foot in. But with Schwaner, because he's a little shorter, he's so good at anticipating that being that extra step early. And it allowed Canada to be that much more aggressive, and it made the U.S. so uncomfortable in the track, like in how they were trying to build out. That you wonder, oh, okay, that's another option to use, because especially if Kone is going to play as a 10 at Marseille, maybe you look at playing him as a 10 for Canada, because that Schwaner Eustachio pivot, if you get just that bit more defensively, if you're able to press a bit more, that helps Canada. That's another option for Jesse Marsh to use. And of course, we haven't even seen what Nico Seeger can do. It's just more flexibility. And I think for Schwaner, it was the perfect performance, because the midfield all of a sudden starting to get a little crowded. Schwaner kind of put out a flag being like, look at me. I can start some key games and force you to tinker things with what he brings.
Hey, and it was a position we were complaining about a little bit with the lack of depth, and all of a sudden, Kone, Eustachio, Seeger coming up, we didn't even see him, and then Schwaner with a performance like that. And that's what kind of surprised me from Copa America, Alex, is that when we played in this 4-4-2 and it wasn't Kone, when he was kind of struggling a bit, we saw Osorio. And I kind of thought in this match we were going to see Osorio as well, and I was always a little baffled because I just look at the profile of Schwaner and what Jesse wants to do, and this is exactly what I pictured. And I thought it was a fantastic performance to make Schwaner at least be in the conversation now. And how are you going to, mold this team to maybe get him into a starting 11 or at least push off the bench for a Kone? I was really impressed with him. Another player we have to mention, I'm going to get you to touch on Ahmed as well, but let us know, guys, if you're just joining the chat, say hello, drop a like, and let us know what your biggest takeaway was. We just touched on Schwaner. I wanted to show him some love right away, but I'm moving on to Bomito immediately because, Alex, he was a wall, an absolute wall. And the two or three things I want to highlight from him, and I just want to get your thoughts on it. The first is the recovery speed, which was flawless. I mean, Jesse wanted to play a little bit of a high line, allowed the U.S. to put a couple players. I'm looking at Balogun, I'm looking at Pulisic running in, and they had 2-3 steps on Bomito. And they looked like they could take a touch and be gone. And how quick he is and how clever he is to be able to, one, make up that lost ground, and then to put his body in a proper position to fairly win the ball, let the ball run out for a goal kick, or just to completely take it away and then comfortably play over the back was one thing I noticed. And the other thing was that he looked so calm on the ball. And we've known this since when we've seen him basically play for Canada, but there was a few times because the United States just were not pressing us. And I said this team's playing with a little confidence, a little swagger, but when their back line had the ball, you saw 4 players closing in. And I noticed a few times when Bomito had the ball, he was almost just kind of sitting there, and you saw Balogun run to him. He'd make a little pass to Eustachio. Eustachio would put it right back. Bomito would just lay it off for Eustachio to walk in acres of space and then do a nice switch out to Davies. And there was a few times his passing just looked so comfortable, and then add that to his athleticism and his speed. He just put in a complete performance, and you saw him fired up every time, like friendly or not, man. Every time you saw him make a challenge or win something, you saw him give like the fist pump. He was up for it. He loved it. And he was, for me, my man of the match.
Yeah, he loves defending. He loves defending. I think there was a clip of him against New York City earlier this year. It was where he made a big intervention, or maybe I don't know if it was New York City, but he celebrates his defensive actions. So he kind of loves defending, and it's. You see the skills, the speed, just the way he can cheat a little, knowing that, all right, like if I cheat and get that lunge, I'll pay it off. But even if I don't get that lunge, I can still recover. I can still do it. It's a skill, because you can always argue like, oh, it's risky. Maybe some days he'll get burned. Yeah, I mean, that's the nature of the game, right? He got a red card last week for Nice. A bit unfair on him because it kind of originated from one of his teammates' errors, and it was him cleaning up. But that's the kind of game he can play, because he has the speed, he has that aggression where he can throw himself in a tackle, and they were all spot on. There was never even a risk of a yellow in this game. And as we've seen in Copa America, he can get a yellow and still play 80 minutes, 70 minutes on that tight line, or so to speak, that tightrope. So yeah, with Bomito, the big thing that I'd say is, if you're the Colorado Rapids, they put a 20% sell-on clause in on Bomito. Smart piece of business, because man, like, you look at what he can do on the ball, you look at what he can do with his speed, his defending, just the whole package. It feels like a year or two at Nice, and Colorado will make good on that sell-on clause. And what I'm so excited about at Nice is that it's just, as soon as he comes back from suspension, he's going to play so much, he's going to develop so much, because you can already see the confidence that 2 games at Nice has given him in this window. Like I can't wait to see what he looks like in March, in April next summer, because I really feel like the sky's the limit for what he's done.
I agree, and he impressed everybody. I saw it all over X last night, and I like the fact that he did, like you just mentioned, Alex. He got a red in his last match against Nice, and it didn't shake him whatsoever. He's a confident man, and I'm expecting now we'll build a starting 11 towards the end of the stream, but I'm expecting him maybe to start again, considering that he's not going to be going back and playing for Nice because he's suspended. But we'll get into that later. I'm asking you guys a question in the chat. Who was your man of the match? I've seen a few different players thrown out there, and there's a lot of really good performances. I personally say Bomito, and I think two other players you can argue. Jonathan David had an excellent match. We'll get to him, but I do want to talk about Ali Ahmed. And I thought Ali put in a type of performance in that first half where I was like, okay, maybe he's the man of the match. He was incredible. And Alex, we can question maybe not anymore. What's his best position? Is it out wide on the right hand side? Is it tucking into the middle? Would it be in a midfield three? The things I liked about Ahmed that I saw yesterday was, I mean, one, having me on the wing like that, and the amount of times that I've seen him win the ball back and all of a sudden go right down the other way. I thought he linked up really well with Johnson when he was on, as well as Larin. He was clever with his passing. He's so technically gifted. He's so good with the ball at his feet too. It looks like it's just stuck to him when he runs. I'm wondering if he could maybe push a Tajon Buchanan for that starting spot. Is that a little too much, do you think? Or like when you're picturing Ali Ahmed in this team pushing for starting like 11 spot, do you picture him pushing Buchanan, or do you think he'd have to find that role in like a midfield three?
Well, I just would. It's funny you mentioned that because that is a chain of thought that has originated watching the game. Because look, I think Ahmed's best position probably is still is a box to box, but Canada doesn't really have room for that, right? Because they got two pivots, and they've got a 10, and I think of the three, he probably fits the 10 more. But I think that for now that's probably going to be earmarked for either Jonathan David, was excellent in that role yesterday. It's going to be earmarked for a Kone or an Azorio, right? That's not really Ahmed's going to be in there. Right wing though, in this system, he fits it so well. And what I'll say, and why he could legitimately start, is because what's Tajon Buchanan best at? He's best at going out wide and taking guys on 1v1, and he's really good at it. And that's how he won that spot originally for Canada, just like he was so electric 1v1. The thing is with Ahmed, he can do that. He can do that to a very similar level as Tajon Buchanan, like taking guys on 1v1, right? Okay, they can compete on that regard alone. What Ahmed offered yesterday, though, which I think could be the game changer, is Ahmed could also tuck in. He was causing so much trouble for the U.S. left back Lund, because sometimes he'd pop up and run at him, and Lund's like, oh, shoot, okay, I have to be locked in. But then the next play, Ahmed would drift all the way into the middle and find a pocket of space and then play a killer through ball. And then you'd be like, Lund would be like, well, shoot, that's my guy. Right? What do I do? He's just kind of free in the middle. And I think that was the game changer, because there was a moment, too, where Johnston made a flying overlapping run early because Ahmed tucked in and kind of forced Lund to go with them, and he played that space. And I know Larin had a few runs as well because Ahmed was opening up that space. And I think that's the game changer why Ahmed could legitimately start over Buchanan in that position, is that Ahmed, of course, gives you the similar 1v1 profile. He's competent defensively, too, because he's played as a fullback, so you're not losing that either, because Buchanan obviously has that in his game. But he almost acts like a fourth midfielder at times, and he's secure enough with the ball, good enough to play with his teammates, that it caused so many problems every time he'd kind of drift into that half space that it makes me wonder, okay, for Buchanan, maybe for him, maybe the left might be the way to go. I know Jesse Marsh doesn't really like playing his right footers on the other side. That's why he's kind of gone like Schaffelberg left, Ahmed right, But Miller's proven that he will play a righty on the left side. Maybe that's the way to go for Buchanan, because I think that added element of Ahmed being almost like a fourth midfielder, it just makes such a difference. You saw it against Uruguay, you saw it now against the U.S. It's a huge bonus.
It's two statement performances, I think, from Ali Ahmed, because when we're still missing like big players. When you picture Canada's best 11, you picture Buchanan, you picture Kone. But I remember talking to people last night and being like, who do you think of Ali Ahmed? Do you think he could push? And I'd say the majority. Let me know, guys, in the comment section. Do you think Ali Ahmed can push Buchanan for that starting right mid position? And everything Alex just highlighted was super impressive. But I also like how I just like a clever player, and I noticed it a lot yesterday on the defensive side of the game with Ahmed and Bomito. It's just their body position. the way that and a couple people mentioned it here, Ahmed picking Christian Pulisic's pocket, he did it to Lund too. I don't know how many times Lund had the ball and thought he could get it, and it's just a clever angle for Ahmed to get his body in the way, and he just sneaks the ball away from it. And he's going right back down the other end, and he's a lot faster than I think he gets credit for. Ali Ahmed looked dangerous that entire match. He drifted off a little bit in the second half, but the first half I thought he was dominant. I was like, man, he's having a big performance. And then the last player I wanted to highlight, and it looks like most of the chat is agreeing with for man of the match, is Jonathan David. And Alex, Jonathan David, and I've said this many times, and I think you would obviously agree, is one of the best pressing strikers in world football, full stop. We saw that. But the way that he can kind of just quietly drift into space, link up, he got the assist, he got the goal. He did a little bit of everything. He was a workhorse. He played almost the entire game. When he come up, the 90th, right?
Yeah, he came out late. He put in a big shift.
He put in a big shift, but there were so many different things that he did that you almost don't look at. Like the eye test, you see a little bit of everything he does, and even then looking at the score sheet, goal, assist. It was, and he put that goal away with authority as well. It fell to him, and there was no doubt in his mind that thing was going in the roof of the net. What did you make of his performance? What impressed you the most? His link-up play, his pressing, the fact that he's now tied for Canada's all-time leading goal scorer with Kyle Larin on 29. So shout out to Jonathan David, or a little bit of everything. Alex, what about it?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to like with the goal and assist was nice because I know there's been some questions of production with Canada. I think the fact that it's now, he scored a couple at Copa America, got an assist there. He scored a goal and assist today. Considering he's playing like underneath the striker, it continues to be very good production. I guess to a point. I mean, we'll get to him quite later, but I did think Kyle Larin looked a lot more like a 9 than a 9.5. Like Larin did well. They kind of stayed out of each other's way. So I wonder if that was a bit of a point of emphasis of like, guys, don't step on each other's toes. Like just, Larin, you go here, David, you go there. And I thought that helped David a lot because David was so free. Like there was never those moments you saw at Copa where he'd receive the ball and Larin would be right on top of him. So I think that helped. Probably the biggest thing that stood out about David, it's kind of funny. Like this guy's touch yesterday, like you could have thrown, I don't even know, like you could have been throwing anything at him, and I feel like he could have taken it down, right? Like he could have been taking down a beach ball the way he was playing. Like his touch was insane. There was one ball, I think it was like a right back on Canada. Maybe it must have been Larin, or maybe it was Eustachio. Just like David had like two guys on him, and they hoofed it about hip height. And he somehow took the ball down, turned, and played a dangerous pass. And I was like, excuse me? Like, like what? Like most guys that comes flying off their hip and it's turned over and they get mad at their teammate. Like, what the heck was that pass? And David was just kind of like, all right, let me take it down with my hip and turn with a guy draped all over me and play a good pass. And that's what was huge because he just offered such a threat between the lines because the U.S., if they left him alone, he would turn and be even more dangerous. So they would constantly step up and try to be super tight, and then he'd still play out of it, and it opened up so much space out wide for Ahmed, for Schaffelberg. It opened up space for Larin to even get in behind a few times. It opened up space for Schwaner to push up and get on the ball. Like David was that perfect link man. So I think that really excited me because I know David can crash the box. I know David can finish. I know David can play, some of those. He can press, like you mentioned, one of the best pressing strikers in Europe. But that link-up play is a huge threat, especially when you realize that, okay, Canada has a few number 9s. Okay, Larin, we'll get to him and his form and what it means. But there's also Tanny, who continues to be dangerous. Theo Bair, who we have to remember gets an injury. Like, there's other guys that can be tried up front. And I think David offered a bit of a glimpse of what he can do in that 10 role. Although it is going to be interesting to see if he maintains it if Kone's coming back. Because all of a sudden, between Kone, Schwaner, Eustachio, Seager, Canada might need to put 3 midfielders out there, and that might push David up to his natural position.
He played deep though. Like there was time, like when I said he kind of he was ghosting into positions and like being that link-up guy, like you said. But I remember and I can't remember exactly who if he played it off to Davies, but all of a sudden, like the ball was coming in and out of camera running in was David coming pretty deep, well into our half, and just a perfect little like layoff for Davies, who then obviously bombed up and down the pitch. And you just don't notice it. It's like, oh, that's David. Like there he is, and then he finds his way to get back up the pitch. And early in the game, I know it wasn't a goal, but when you talk about David and Larin kind of creating space for themselves, Larin did a good job at dropping deep when he put in that nice ball for the volley on Jonathan David. So they were linking up well, like you said, finding good space. But that was a really good pass from Kyle Larin. And I will move over to him now because I'm seeing some comments on him. And it's interesting when you look to go forward, if it's a 3-man midfield and David's a part of it, that opens the door for a potential striker. If it's just, the 4-4-2, I guess, and Konates comes back, it's Eustachio, maybe David gets pushed up. Maybe it's just David taking over the striker role. I don't know. But let's just talk about Kyle Larin's performance right now, because the story, I'd say, going into this game was, we don't always take our chances. I think that's probably fair. Kyle Larin had 2 good chances. The one was a nice driving run. I liked everything about it, and I don't think that's a guaranteed goal. Like, that was a good save from Schulte, but the one when he was driving in and he took a hard shot and Schulte just kind of put a hand up. Like, I'm not expecting him to score that. I think that was a really good run, a promising move, and he won a corner. The second one, the one that was put into the box and David either left it or just missed it, it kind of fell to Larin and then he just put it straight at Schulte. It was an easy save. I think that's the one where you're like, the striker more so just reacts if he was in form, and that'd be in the back of the net instead of just kind of hitting, hoping in the middle of the net. So the finishing wasn't great, but other than that, I think Kyle Larin did a lot of good things off the ball. And that's what we've been saying for a while now, Alex. Do you think he did enough off the ball today to say that, he put in like an 8 out of 10 performance, his link up play or anything? But how would you look at Kyle Larin's performance? Because knowing Tanny coming off the bench, he looked pretty good as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, I thought Larin was excellent without the ball in terms of, and even like just his runs, his movement, and everything. Like, I would agree with a lot of what I've seen in the comments about Larin's overall play. At the same time, the chances are a bit tough to reckon with because they both come in the first half. That puts the game away. That puts the game away, and ultimately, as a striker, it comes down to finishing. And what I'll say with Larin is, and I think again, this is a reflection of how highly we rate Kyle Larin and how good he's been. He scores both of those goals 2 years ago. Like, I actually have zero doubt with my mind, zero doubt. And what stood out to me is the first chance, the breakaway. Yes, Schulte makes a good save, but Larin kind of went for that safety shot you do as a striker when you're maybe not feeling too confident. You just want to make sure you hit the target, right? Like, you don't want to shank it wide. You don't want to hit it over the goal and be like, oh, what am I doing, right? He kind of did that, like, side foot it, just make sure it hits the target. I think Larin 2-3 years ago is just putting his boot through it and putting it in that roof of the net, or he's just like, he's side footing it low and hard in the corner, not kind of like that weird middle ground where Schulte is able to stick a hand out, right? And then the second one, what I was thinking, if you're a striker and either you shoot that first time, side foot, fine, right? Because the keeper is moving, you can catch him off guard. But he took 2 touches, right? When you're taking a second touch in the box, put your boot through it. Because if you have that much time and you're that close, just put your boot through it. It's likely going to go in off something. And it kind of screams lack of confidence when you take a touch and you still kind of softly just make sure it hits the target, right? Like,
did it not go straight? Was it not just right at Schulte? Like, it didn't even really pick a corner, did he?
No, he just side footed it right at Schulte. And I'm thinking, again, if you have the time to take a touch and you're confident, what are you doing? You're just putting your boot through that thing, right? Like, you're just like, all right, I know it's going in the net. And Larin was kind of like, I don't want to risk it going over and I look bad. I'm just going to make sure it hits the target. So what I'll say about Larin is that I think it's one of those where he provided a lot of value off the ball, yes, but also he could have put the game away. And I think for his sake, like, he just needs to get his confidence back. And I'm thinking, if you're Jesse Marsh, for example, let him get 30 off against tired legs, because we haven't seen him do that. Because clearly as a starter, it's not clicking in the sense of goals, right? Like, it's something like the stat now is like he has 2 goals in his last 33 in all comps. Like, ultimately, for a striker, he needs to get his form going. Because for Canada, for as good as he was, he could have had a great performance if he put those 2 goals away and they're up 3-4-0 at halftime. But instead, the game was still close. David finally gets one and kind of creates that separation. So for Larin, it's a bit of an enigma because he's doing a lot of good things now, and it'd feel harsh to bring him out after a game like that. But ultimately, it's what he's done for the program for so long. It's those clutch goals. You need those goals, especially because you already have David who will work really hard. Like, it's not like you're going to lose that with Larin coming out. those goals could be so crucial.
I'm gonna echo a lot of what you said, and let us know in the chat, guys. I get heat a little bit on on my channel and on One Soccer when I talk about Kyle Larin, because some of you guys think I'm being too hard on him. Some of you guys don't, and it's just been the same story. And Gordon kind of highlights it here too. Like, Kyle Larin played really well. He did a lot of really good things off the ball. Like, his work rate is great. He's bought into how this team wants to play. Everything Alex said, everything a lot of you guys are saying in the chat, it's all true. And we wouldn't even be talking about Kyle Larin, and we wouldn't continue to be talking about Kyle Larin if he just simply put some of these chances away. Because honestly, it's not like they're half chances. It's not like I think that one kind of like the breakaway-ish, because he had a little pressure on him. I think that's kind of a half chance. Like, if he scores it, like maybe a top informed striker would. But it was the second one, and then there was multiple times throughout Copa America, and before that, like you just said, he scored 3 goals in 33 matches. He's not on a good run of spell. He's not playing for Mallorca right now. He looks like a striker that's overthinking it, and Alex highlighted that too when he has that first touch. A striker in form, or a Kyle Larin in his Besiktas days, that ball's coming in. He's not even looking. He's hitting it first time, and it's going in the corner of the net. He's just not in it right now. And I said before the game, like, I desperately want to see Kyle Larin score, because sometimes with a striker like that, it just takes one. And then he just stops overthinking it, and he plays the way he's been doing, but those are going in, and he's scoring. And then we're not talking about this again and again and again. Now, I will play devil's advocate, because I, and a lot of you guys too, have said it's Tanny time. Tanny's also had a bit of problem coming off the bench and not scoring as well. It's not like we have a different striker on the bench that is putting the ball in the back of the net every time he comes off. I think Tanny is in a very similar boat to Kyle Larin. He's impressed me. Everything he does off the ball. He had a really nasty turn yesterday as well, Alex. You remember that? It was like someone passed it into him. He had 2 defenders. I don't even know what he did, but all of a sudden he was breaking free. But he had numerous opportunities in Copa America, and he had a couple of opportunities last night as well, and he's not scoring either. So at what point is it, I mean, I wish we had a healthy Theo Bair here. I would have really liked to see what he could have did in a 90-minute run, or maybe a Jason Russell-Rowe. He's a player who scores in big games and big moments. Are you so? Like, I guess, what are you thinking of? I guess tomorrow, but also like more long term. Like, if it's not Kyle Larin, what other? And it's not Tanny, maybe. Like, what other strikers do you look at? Are you hoping that Bair comes in and can be that option? Is it that David goes up and he's our guy, he's our striker? You bring in a Schwaner into the midfield. Like, how are you looking? Because we keep having this conversation, Alex, and then we get a little heat being like, you're being too hard on Larin. But at the end of the day, he's a striker, and he's a damn good striker. But he's not putting the ball in the back of the net right now.
Yeah, you put the solution right there. I mean, you take the guy who scored 4 goals in 5 or 6 games for Lille this year, or something like that, who just scored a goal and assist this game, who, despite playing as a 10 for most of Copa America, did get 2 goals and an assist. Put Jonathan David up front. I think ultimately, if you do that, and that allows you to put another 10, right, like an extra midfielder, so that David can get more chances. I think you kind of got to ride that and because that's the thing. I agree with Tenny all the way, in the sense that he's already in a similar conundrum to his Larin, to that. Like, I'm really liking Tenny's game. Like, I really like his, like, the way he can take the ball down on his chest for someone of his size continues to impress me. He's a huge, and he can take the ball down, he can hold it up, he can turn, he's good with the ball at his feet. But yes, he's like Larin, hasn't. Like, because Larin, it's different, because Larin's just not scoring at all, period, whatever shirt he's on. He just needs his confidence. Tanny's at that point that young strikers have, and you see it all the time. He's scoring for fun at club level when healthy, but he hasn't had that first national team goal, right? Like, he needs that feeling of scoring a national team goal to be like, oh, I can do it at this level. So I think for both, they could be best served continuing to get those off the bench. And if you're Canada, just ride David. And I think, like, how good of a luxury is that for a coach, that David is just going to lead the line and be David and run all over and cause problems for center backs, because you don't know if he's going to pop up at the center circle or in behind your defense. And then, you look to the side, and the freak of nature that is Tanny Oluwasi's coming on to just, be annoying, or Kyle Larin, one of the program's all-time leading scorers, is coming off. I think right now the solution is to kind of ride with David and let Larin get his confidence back, let Tanny find his first goal. Ditto goes for Theo Bair when he's healthy, right? Because he kind of needs a similar moment for Canada where he gets that moment. I think that's the reality with Canada. Like, they've got a lot of good striker depth, but a lot of them are in moments where they do need to kind of get that same production going for Canada. And the reality is, out of all of them, Jonathan David has been the most consistent. So let him lead that line.
Now, I want to push you, Alex, because like the chat's making good points, and it's, I get the feedback all the time, so I'm going to try to take some of their points and wrap it into a question here. And it's going to be that Kyle Larin, so David's saying, like, Kyle Larin is similar to the Olivier Giroud role. When France won their World Cup, Giroud, I believe, started every single game and didn't score a single goal. Some of you guys were saying that Larin is playing for a reason, only to focus only on him not scoring would be blind to what else he offers. He's a big part of a team that's been successful. We've been getting results at Copa America with him starting. We won yesterday. And I don't think it's blind to looking at the fact that, like, and we've recognized, and every time I talk about Kyle Larin, and so do you, Alex, we say he does incredible stuff off the ball. And even like on the ball, some of his link-up play has been great. But in a game, in such a competitive match, and let's just say this example, if he scores one of those goals, it's 2-0, and that changes the complexion of the game. If all of a sudden he misses these chances, it's 2-0. They make it 2-1, and Pepe scores that goal. We walk away with a draw. We can't be blind to the fact that he's not putting the ball in the back of the net. So the question I want to raise to you is, if you're going to take Kyle Larin out and everything that he's been offering, do you think that there's a player that can come in here and do the same thing off the ball, and then obviously maybe, hopefully lead to more goals? Now, that could be a Jason Russell-Rowe. It could be Tanny if you want to do it. Or do you think there's a chance of having like a Schwaner in the midfield, and then when you're looking at David pressing, it's Schwaner right behind him, or maybe Kone, or however you want to do it? Do you think that there's a player that can come in here and do what Larin does off the ball? That's the question. That's the biggest pushback I'm seeing, is that, he offers too much to this team despite not scoring to take him out.
Yeah, and I would counter by saying, like, what is he doing well, right? Like, his hold up was good yesterday. He was bringing players in. He was working hard. Okay, well, if you move David up front, David can hold up the ball. David will work hard. I mean, this guy's constantly like one of Lille's highest kilometer output guys, which is, again, a hugely abnormal for a striker to be pushing 12, 13 kilometers a game. And I think if David gets one of those two chances Larin had yesterday, he scores one, if not both. So that and yeah, what do we say, right? Larin's holding the ball up, bringing his teammates and working hard. David does that, and then you get a midfielder who can do the exact same thing, right? I think that's the reality, is that if you're looking at Larin and saying, oh, what he's doing off the ball, what he's doing in terms of possession, why not just throw in an extra midfielder and focus on filtering more chances to Jonathan David? Because Jonathan David had one real big chance yesterday. He puts it away. Give him more chances, right? Like, he needs to get more chances. So that's what I'd counter with that. You may as well just put in another midfielder, because if you're looking at that front six and you have Eustachio and Schwaner, say, Kone's healthy, Ahmed and Schaffelberg, and those are five guys who are trying to feed David, I think David's going to get his chances, and you're going to make up for some of that dirty work you lose with Larin, because I think all those guys will do the dirty work. Kone will do the dirty work. David, Ahmed, Schaffelberg, Schwaner, etc. I think the reality is, if you're looking at a striker like Larin and he's not scoring, and you're saying he's doing a lot of little things off the ball, I'm just personally of the opinion, may as well put another midfielder and try to get a little more chance creation, etc. So that would be my counter argument.
So which one? This is hypothetically long term. Imagine all our players are healthy. We are argued. Are you going to put? I'm assuming you're looking at 4-2-3-1, Alex, because when don't we? Could you imagine maybe you're going to introduce Eustachio with Seeger and then push Kone into that 10 role? David's your striker. Maybe Buchanan or Ahmed out right. Do you put, or maybe Buchanan out left? Do you put Schwaner in that role? Maybe Seeger's not quite ready yet. Then you have Kone and Eustachio. Because I think the way I saw Schwaner press, I think he could do that job, like defending from the front like that. When you're watching, whoever they're pressing down, having Schwaner right behind David pressing like that, I think he could do it, because we saw how much he can cover. But will he be able to, create those chances going forward? Who do you really want to see in that 10 role, I guess? Because Kone. So it's got to be Kone. So then who goes to the sixes? Eustachio, Seeger,
Schwaner. For now, like Schwaner, I liked what I saw defensively. Ride that out. Seeger, if he, this is good news for Seeger, because Schwaner being as good as he was in that role kind of allows Seeger time. You're not rushing him into anything. I'd say Rock Eustachio, Schwaner, Kone is your midfield three for the time being. Keep Ahmed outright. Schaffelberg can stick on the left when Buchanan's back. I'd like to see Buchanan on the left. For what it's worth, Buchanan has played exclusively on the left at Inter, so maybe that's something where that's a bit of a fit thing there when that all comes together. And let David lead the line, and we can revisit What's nice is that we know now that David can really do a job at the 10. And the reality is, if a Larin starts scoring, be it off the bench for Canada or back at Mallorca, or if Tanny starts scoring for Canada, or Bear starts scoring for Canada, or Jason Russell-Rose starts scoring for Canada, who else starts scoring for Canada, then you can revisit, all right, David underneath the striker. But I think for now, until those strikers don't do it, like you have Kone as like Roberto De Zerbi, who I'm not going to question that guy's football knowledge. I've watched a few Marseille games this year, and I've watched a few Brighton games. His teams know how to play, and he's a pretty good identifier of talent. He's seen Ismail Kone. Like, I want to make this guy a 10. I want to see what he cooks with that, because if it works out, I think Kone at the 10 could end up being a perfect fit for both club and country.
And I'll quickly just draw you guys a picture. I think this is a starting 11 Alex is thinking of as well, but it would be Crepeau, back four, same, Johnston, Bomito, Cornelius, Davies. It would be Schwaner, Eustachio in the double pivot. Kone is your 10, Ahmed out on the right, Schaffelberg on the left, David is your striker.
Boom.
And then you can debate whether Buchanan fights his way for Schaffelberg or fights his way in for Ahmed.
Seeger as well.
Seeger's another one as well. It's a lot, but I mean, good comment here. It's honestly great just having these many options to choose from, and it's great every time we see a player like a Schwaner and Ahmed, who had, I think, the most to gain from this performance, put in 2 phenomenal efforts. And I think it'll go a long way for them. And I'm curious to see what our starting 11 will look like for the next match, Alex. So let's kind of shift it a little bit to the players who came off the bench. Now, Johnston came off in the 25th minute. Larea came in. We saw Zorio come in for Eustachio. We saw Liam Miller come on, and we saw Tanny. Joel Waterman as well. So we can kind of touch on all those. The last two, obviously, great to see debuts for Afrifa and Saliba, but we saw them for like 2 minutes. Who impressed you the most coming off the bench? Because I really liked what I saw from Liam Miller. I thought he came on with a lot of energy. I liked what I saw from Tanny. I thought Joel Waterman looked pretty comfortable alongside Bomito. And I thought Richie just, kind of did what Richie did. So any one of those players kind of stand out for you for an option coming off the bench?
Yeah, they were all, I would agree. Like, I thought Miller, what I like and what I continue to like is he just comes on and wants the ball and wants to make things happen. He won a couple fouls. It's direct, right? It's direct and dangerous. So Miller was no notes there. Zorio just kind of did his thing. Tanny, like Oluwasi, he comes in and he's just dangerous. He gets into good positions. He offers a bit of a wild card when the game stretches out. I thought Waterman was a bit of a quietly solid one. It's a bit of an interesting one because he's been slumping a little bit at Montreal. So for him to come in and get a moment like this, I think that was okay. Interesting to see how that reaction, the good bounce back from Waterman. And yeah, I mean, the two, hopefully Saliba and Afrifa, we get to see a little more of, because I think that would be nice to build and let them really get a good look against Mexico to see what's going on there.
What do you think it means for Kamal Miller? Because when I saw Derek Cornelius pick up that injury and come off, I just assumed, left-sided center back, left-footed center back, Kamal Miller would be the guy to come on and play alongside Bomito. Instead, Marsh pushes Bomito over to the left-hand side and brings on Joel Waterman. Like you highlight, I don't think like he's been in awful form or anything, but it's not like, he's pushing at one of these starting spots coming into the team here. So do you think that's a bit of a statement that, I think we questioned this the last time we were talking about, Miller's impact on this team maybe going forward? Do you think it's a bit of a statement that next man up is Waterman, or do you think it's just maybe give him some reps?
It's a friendly. Jesse Marsh has seen Kamal Miller 3-4 times now. He showed at Copa America he clearly trusts him to come off the bench. He 45 against Peru. He played some other. He was a guy trusted to come in. I think Jesse Marsh knows what he has with Kamal Miller. Like Kamal Miller, the unfortunate reality is he doesn't fit the system as well as Cornelius and Bomito, and that's why he's lost his spot. I don't think he's going to get it back anytime soon by no fault of his own. Right? I think the reality is that Marsh just, and rightfully so based on what we've seen, sees Cornelius Bomito as the pair for now. And, they're both in Liga, and now they've clearly got some good chemistry going on. But you know what you get with Miller. You know that if a Cornelius goes down, you can throw Miller. You know that if you need off the bench, he didn't see Waterman at all despite bringing him a Copa America. So I think this was a good chance to just see, like, okay, is Waterman another guy that you can throw in? And I think Waterman showed a good glimpse to be like, all right, I deserve maybe a bit more of a look. So, no, I didn't read too much. It's a friendly. Ultimately, you need to see guys like Waterman. He saw a lot of Miller during the summer. I don't think that changes his perspective of either.
All right, now let's bring up the starting 11. Alex, you and I are going to have some fun here. Now, going into the window, I quite clearly said, I don't know if this is true or not, this is just my opinion, that Jesse was circling the US game, and I expected the best 11. I expected intensity. I expected a good performance. We saw all that, and they get a walk away with a 2-1 win. Jesse Marsh sent a few shots that way before the game, and he walked away with a big smile on his face. It's nice when that happens, and not a moment like the Herdman Croatia thing, because it's not always great sending shots and then not being able to back it up. So big shout out to Jesse for pulling that off. Now we play Mexico, so I'm curious to see how we approach the game. I'm curious to see if the intensity can be matched, because I think if we can play the same kind of way, I think that Mexico's going to be in a bit of trouble. They had a lot of time and space in that New Zealand game, and they're not going to have that if Canada even can kind of replicate their performance. But these are friendlies at the end of the day. There are new players in this camp. There are players that have been with this team but maybe haven't got a ton of looks. So Alex, this is the lineup we saw yesterday. I believe it was already pre-saved here. It was Crepeau, Johnston, Bomito, Cornelius, Davies, Eustachio, Schwaner, David, Ahmed, Schaffelberg, and Larin. So let's kind of play with it. Talk about players that we think maybe will get a look, which ones won't. There's, I guess, 2 injuries to kind of talk about. Johnston, Cornelius. I don't know how serious Cornelius's would be. Kind of just looked like, he bled a little bit. Kind of seemed like the bandage was bugging him. I don't really know, but I'm going to assume we're going to probably replace both of those. So let's just start with Crepeau. I'm guessing that Dane St. Clair is going to start. Do you agree?
Yeah, I think St. Clair goes in. No nonsense.
All right, so we'll put Dane St. Clair in.
Crepeau was really good yesterday, by the way. But and we know what he brings. Give St. Clair a look. Marsh has shown he's willing to give both a look.
He was. And what a big save. Like we talked about how it would have felt so unjust for Pepe to score that goal and then United States to walk away with a 2-2 draw. But they had that chance. It was 2-0. Things were going really well. That awkward ball came in the box. I think Davies just kind of swung and missed at it. I think it was offside, Alex. I don't like.
It was, but
yeah, like
no VAR.
There's no VAR, so
I think Canada gets away with it normally.
I think so too. Obviously there was, they would have been fine. But regardless, it was it was a tough goal to want to give up, and then there was a big chance late in the game, and that was a big save. Pepe is a solid striker. He's scoring goals in Europe. It was a big save from Crepeau, and that pretty much sealed the win. So we got Dane St. Clair net in the back 4. This is what I think, Alex, and let me know if you agree. I'm guessing because of the Johnston injury, I'm going to put Larin in there. I'm thinking Bomito plays and plays all 90 pretty much again because he's got that red card for Nice. I'm going to say maybe Waterman, unless you think Kamal Miller could come in for Cornelius, and then I think Davies will start. That's kind of what I'm leaning towards. What do you think?
I think you see Larea, Bomito, Miller, Davies. I think Kamal comes in, like Waterman kind of got his look. And I think if we see more Waterman, it will be because maybe Bomito gets plays 70 and you give Waterman the last 20 with Miller. There is some familiarity there from the CF Montreal days with Miller and Waterman. We can't forget. But I think Cornelius, he just got banged up. No reason to push him. Hopefully he can continue to play for Marseille when he gets back. That's probably the back 4. And Johnson, for what it's worth, actually could start. I know I was reading that Jesse Marsh just said that Johnston, he just decided he felt like a tiny thing in his hamstring and immediately said look, it's a friendly, just get me off. Let's just be safe. It's not push. So I think there's also a chance Johnson could be good because that has happened before where I think it was the Netherlands friendly where he came off early. Marsh was saying, and then by France, a few days later, Johnson was fine. So maybe Johnson comes off the bench or starts. We'll see how his next few days go.
I kind of hope not, right? If he felt, especially in the hamstring, that just scares the crap out of me for any player. But I mean, I don't know. I'm not the doctor. I don't know how serious it is, but hamstrings are tough. So I'm hoping just Johnson gets the rest he needs. But I mean, I guess it would be better if he's just completely fit to play, and we do get to see him a little bit. But yeah, I agree, and I kind of think that we'll see Miller too. I was a little surprised we didn't see him come off for Cornelius, but that's pretty much what I'm seeing. So now, Alex, do you want to keep it in 4-2-3-1, or do you want to make it like that 4-4-2? Because I think in the midfield we could maybe see like a Eustachio Osorio, assuming it's a 4-4-2, or I guess maybe I'm trying to think. Because Schwaner basically played the entire match. So Eustachio played 67.
I think Eustachio starts. If I were to guess, based on what's available and what we saw,
I agree.
I think it's going to be Eustachio Osorio. I think from there, Seeger will come off the bench because I'd like to say Eustachio Seeger because that'd be a good first start for Seeger. But I think you don't want to rush him. He is also coming off an injury. Maybe Seeger gets 30 or 45 off the bench.
I agree. I definitely thought Yusaki was going to start. I definitely think Osorio was going to start. I just didn't know how the remaining 4 will look. We have Steven Afrifa, who did come off the bench. Marsh said you'd see him in both matches. I still don't think he's going to start.
No.
I kind of think Ahmed will start again. That's kind of what my gut says. I'm pretty confident we'll see Liam Miller start for Schaffelberg. And then I think David will start. And then I kind of think Tanny might get a go. That's kind of how I see it going. What do you think?
I'm curious for Ahmed because he did run a full 90.
Right? I don't know. Like then who goes there?
That's it. I think the Johnston thing, because I think Marsh was probably banking on Larea being able to play on the right wing the second game, and now that Larea might have to play right back is probably thrown a bit of a wrench in those plans. So, because I also don't think he wants to rush Afrifa. Maybe it's something where he just says, "Look, Ali, give me the first 45, and then we'll bring Afrifa. We just don't want to throw him in for a first start." That's probably what I'd think. And then
that's kind of what I was leaning to, because when I was trying to come up with it before we got going here, I was like, who, like, are they really gonna give it to Ahmed again? And I just like, I don't know who else could go there. I guess you can maybe start, but are you gonna give it to Schwaner again and maybe push him out wide, or maybe put Osorio, I guess, a little? I don't know.
No, I think this makes sense.
Yeah,
because Ahmed, he's a pretty fit guy. I think if you can get 45 out of him, and you got Afrifa. Because again, to this point, we have to remember, like, I'd love to start Seeger. I'd like to start Afrifa. But for Jesse Marsh, he's made it clear, like, for these new guys, there's an embedding process. It takes time. Like Ali Ahmed, right? We're loving what he's done. It took a while for him to get that first look. For Tani Oluwasi, it's a lot of off the bench. Then he finally started against Uruguay. Jesse Marsh made it clear that there's a certain embedding process. Like, I'd love to give me 90 minutes of Seeger, don't get me wrong. But the reality is that's not going to happen. And that's without even considering Seeger, again, coming off a small injury. No reason to throw him into a 90 against Mexico and, get him injured again for the run for Hayuk. So I think this makes sense. And then maybe we see Seeger free for as early as 45, at the very least, around minute 60.
I 100% agree. It just, we don't know what Johnston is, and if he's able to start, then I kind of leaning with you, Alex, that it would be Johnson at right back, Larea right mid. I don't know though. Like I really don't know. I mean, we won't know, but I think this one makes a lot of sense, and Ahmed can go 45. Like that doesn't worry me at all.
It's very doable.
I don't know about Seeker though. I have no idea how or what to expect from him. My gut would tell me maybe sometime after the 75th minute, maybe even in the 80th, just to kind of come on.
He played 15 for Hayuk split in the last game, so that usually indicates that he should be good for around 30, because I like to kind of build it up in increments. So we'll see if that's possible.
Because that'd be an exciting substitute. It might be Eustachio, because Eustachio did play. Like if he goes 67-minute games,
Eustachio probably
goes all 90.
Target, because again, he's not playing too much with Porto. You're probably targeting him at least a 70, right? A 70, 80.
Yeah, but I'm excited to see Seeger. I'd like to see him get more, but we know with the knock, maybe anywhere between 30 or so minutes we could see him, and then Afrifa I think is definitely probably next man up. Or I guess, I mean, if Ahmed does go, because Schaffelberg came off in the 67th, so I guess you could start, Alex. I didn't even think of that. You could go Schaff instead of Ahmed.
Yeah, right? Well, I think
didn't Schaff go? Yeah, he played 67.
I think I would throw that out as an idea, but Marsh has pretty much made it clear that he's kind of had, like, his wingers are where they are, right?
Yeah.
Bit of a teaser. We spoke to Steven Afrifa last week. I'll just say, if you want to hear more about one of Canada's newest players, that interview should be up on this channel sometime this week. And Afrifa told us, which was really interesting, that Marsh kind of asked him, like, day one, like, what's your preferred side as a winger, and where do you, and it looks like Afrifa is going to be seen as more of a right winger based on, just the discussions they had. So I think Marsh has been pretty clear that, like, unless you're a Miller who exclusively plays on the left as a righty, the sides are going to be kind of specific, right?
So that, kind of sums up the potential subs we could see. Seeger coming on for Osorio or Eustachio, Afrifa coming on for Ahmed. Schaffelberg will more than likely at some point come on for Miller. We'll probably see maybe Larin or maybe Russell Rowe for David, Larin for
I
Tanny.
think David starts. That's the one thing,
so?
Again, David's quite fit. I mean, he did go 90, but I think you see something where David starts and he's just paired with someone different. Because if Larin starts, I'd be surprised to see like a Larin Tanny pair. I think that pair could actually work, because then you can get Larin dropping a little deeper and playing what he's used to. But I'd be surprised if Marsh throws that at us.
So this is basically, I think, Alex, like before, when I did this on paper, this is the exact starting 11. I did have Waterman in there instead of Kamal Miller, just based off of him kind of getting some minutes, but I think this would make a lot of sense too. So that's a potential starting 11. Alex and I are looking at Dane Sinclair, the keeper, Larea, Bombito, Miller, Davies as your back four, Azorio, Eustachio in the pivot, Ahmed out right, Miller out left, and then David and Tanny up front. And yeah, I like it. I like it. So let's get into some comments, guys. We got the last 10 or so minutes of the stream. So just fire in some comments. Well, it can be about anything to do with the national team, pretty much. The game we just saw, the game coming up. And we'll start just answering questions to wrap up our stream. So I'll just read a couple right now. I'd love to see Tanny get a start. He's brought a ton of energy coming off the bench in previous games. Yeah, I think it'd be interesting if Tanny can score in this game, or if Larin
can... he needs that. Both of them. Like, oh, that's why actually to throw out. Maybe you see, because you know what you have with David. Maybe you look at Mexico. Maybe you start Tanny and Larin together and be like, guys, like, go out and score. Because again, what I'll say is, Larin works with Larin works underneath another striker. Like, it's unconventional because Larin's so big. But Larin as a second striker could work. So maybe that's like Jesse Marsh goes for a kind of big brain play there.
It could happen. We need one of them to catch fire here a little bit. Alec, what are your thoughts on Azorio in the double pivot? We got a comment here saying, I'm not so confident. I would say I wasn't so confident, but then I saw what Azorio could do at Copa America. He really impressed me playing in that role, and I didn't think he was even really capable of doing that.
Yeah, Jesse Marsh has trusted him, and there were some shaky moments at first in the double pivot, but I think Azorio has shown that, especially as he gets older, his positioning is getting quite good. He's getting used to the defensive side of the game. Like, I don't mind the Azorio double pivot. It's like you're maybe not going to get the same energy as a Schwaner or the like flash of a Kone, but it's reliable enough to do a job there. And we'll see how long it lasts, because if a Seeger is ready to give you 30, or Schwaner, of course, will be ready to come off the bench. Like, it's not going to be running a full 90 there, right?
Absolutely. We got a question coming in from War Daddy. Says, beyond Larea, who is the next left back after Adekubi? I just did a little, I don't know. Alex just kind of come up with a few in like a depth chart way, because Davies is obviously number one. I'd say Adekubi is clearly number two. Larea can go over there, but he's a right back who can play left back. I'm trying to remember. Kyle Hebert can play in that role as well. He's been playing a lot of center back though lately at St. Louis. He's a type of player that Jesse Marsh likes, which is the reason he was included in recent squads. Not included in this one though, notable. And then what about like a Ryan Edwards, who's having a pretty decent season at CF Montreal, kind of getting down there in the depth chart, but I don't know if I'm missing anybody. But those are some players that come to mind.
Yeah, I think if you're looking at natural left-footed left backs,
or Kamal, but
yeah,
I don't know. Yeah,
Kamal Miller, I'd say, is up there. Just shout out to Adekubi for those who maybe weren't paying attention in MLS. I got to see Adekubi play 30 at BC Place last night, so the concerns of his injury being serious were quickly alleviated with that. I like the Raheem Edwards shout. He's been probably one of the more consistent players at CF Montreal this year, and he's reliable. He's become a veteran at this stage. Yeah, after that, it's they're just, because a guy like Diadine Abzi, like, he's just kind of in no man's land with his club situation. Because I think if he could have been a bit more of a reliable contributor in Spain, I think he'd be considering like having a look at what an Abzi could do in terms of a left footer who's used to playing left back. Yeah, like genuinely after that, like, because if Kwasi Poku was playing as a left back and not as a winger, you could also throw him in that mix. Canada really doesn't have that many left-footed guys playing in regularly on the left side.
That kind of leads into, and I forgot to mention this earlier, Alex, but I thought Alphonso Davies had another solid performance at left back. It's a quiet performance because we're so used to him being center of attention up at left mid, left wing, center attacking mid, striker. I mean, that's where we usually see Davies over the years, just kind of getting plugged in there. And that's where I think the most criticism has come from Davies, is when he's in those positions, he drifts and he tries to do a little bit too much. I think his game was so simplified playing in this back four, and you still see him have his opportunities going forward, Alex. There's 4 or 5 times in this game where you just see Davies going full steam, walking into to David sending him down the line, or Miller or Schaffelberg or Eustachio with a nice switch, and you see Davies get into dangerous areas where he puts a ball in the box and he'll win a corner or create a chance. But also on the flip side of thing, when we're talking about recovery speed and how good Bomito was at it, you also, if it's not Bomito, it's Davies getting back there with that recovery speed because he knows he has it. It's not really a question mark anymore, is it, Alex? Like he's a left back for Canada. He's a captain of this Canadian team. He's left back is his role. And now talking about the left hand side, imagine maybe what it could look like if it's not Schaffelberg or Liam Miller. If you maybe should throw a Tajon Buchanan down that way because we have Ahmed outright. Do you think there's any debate anymore, or is it fair to say Davies is left back going forward under Jesse Marsh?
Davies is left back, and I think what I liked yesterday is we started to see a bit more of Davies combining his defensive duties with also more runs forward. And I think if we're going to talk about how solid Canada's been defensively under Marsh, I feel like Davies' insertion into the back line is one of the key reasons for that. So I think Davies is kind of made it a no-brainer at this point that he's the left back, and maybe we'll see him. Well, maybe when Adekubi's fully fit, we can kind of revisit that discussion. But even then, I think at this point for Adekubi to start anyways, he's going to be a guy that you can bring into the game for 30 minutes left, and maybe it's take Davies off and throw Adekubi in, or it's you're up 2-1, you throw Davies out wide, and basically like Davies just running behind on counterattacks, and you put Adekubi at left back. But so that's where you're at for now, because the reality is, well, we need to see Adekubi get regular 90s at club before we can even look at that discussion for country.
I think it was an interesting discussion, though, because you're right. If it's not Adekubi, I don't think it's anybody really pushing Davies further up the pitch. I think it's Davies sticking there at left back, and then, we kind of debate who's going to play at left mid. There is a name right here, Alex, and it's a question directed towards you, and it's Ryan Raposo. He's not a left back. He's not going to play there. I'm assuming if he's going to fit in this team, he'd be probably out right or out left, one of those roles. But how far away do you think he is from maybe getting a look, and do you think he could fit Marsh's system?
Yeah, he could fit the system. Cause he is playing a lot of wing back at the Whitecaps. Like he's just out and out wing back. Because the Whitecaps play with pure, wing backs. It's not like necessarily fullback. He has played some fullback, but it's not necessarily his preferred position. I think he could really fit in as a winger because his defensive work rate's always been really good. Even when he was a 10 coming out of college, like they're always praising, like for a 10, he works really hard defensively. And that's kind of how he ended up as a left back when the Whitecaps played a back four, and now as a wing back because Sveni Sortini trusted him defensively. But I think looking at how he'd fit in Marsh's system, I think at fullback, left back wouldn't really work in terms of just the righty being on that left side. It's we haven't really seen a whole lot of that from Marsh. So I'd see him more of as like a left winger. So yeah, with Canada's depth on the wing, which actually isn't that like big, right? We especially when you realize like a Theo Corbianu is struggling to get minutes right now in the Segunda. So he's kind of fallen out of that depth chart compared to where he is before. Of course, Luca Coglioscio continues to be courted heavily by Italy, so we don't know what's going on there. Like Canada's winger depth isn't wild. I think a Raposo isn't that far off, I'd say, out wide, because he's been playing a pretty key role on a good Whitecaps team this year.
All right, to end it off, I do have a ongoing depth chart, Alex. So let's just take a very quick look at it. It's my nice prized possession here on my Google Sheets, and I just play with it every once in a while. I can't remember the last time I looked at it, so we'll just end off the episode quickly. You guys in the chat can take a look, or if you agree or disagree. I put 4 players in each position, and I keep the dual nationals over to the side. So we'll rapid fire just to try to get going. So just say yes, you agree or disagree. So keepers, I have Crépeau, St. Clair, Sirois, McGill.
Yeah,
and I got Goodman over here, but dual national.
No, valid.
Right backs, I guess I threw Marshall Ruddy in there. I don't know if I should or not, but I had Johnston, Larea, Marshall Ruddy, Franklin.
I'd say in terms of,
I forgot ZBG.
Yeah, I'd say probably I should add ZBG back in there.
ZBG. ZBG just sounds so much smoother, but yeah, ZBG.
Come on, we're Canadian.
I know.
We gotta write our Z.
ZBG. Okay. Well, where would he go? I think he'd actually be third on
third. I think he'd be third.
And who would you kick out? Maybe.
It's tough because Franklin is. I liked Franklin as like a pure right back, but then he's been playing more of a wing back under Herdman. If you're gonna kick one out, I mean that's harsh.
No, I
can't go five deep, eh?
Maybe we can. It's
make an exception.
Yeah, well,
Just for now. You can clean it up later.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, I can't. Yeah, so there's one I forgot for sure, but I'd say he could, ZBG could be there. All right, moving on to the right side at center backs, I have Bomito, Defougerol, who wasn't in this camp, young bit of a prospect, but Waterman and McNaughton. I don't know if I'm missing anybody off the top of my head, but that's kind of the right sides. I threw McGraw over to the left.
Yeah, I'd say that's
fair.
Hard to think anyone off the top of the dome there.
Then we got Cornelius. I mean, I don't know about Kennedy's position anymore. Just got to move to the Belgian second division, which I don't know. Maybe there's some other options we could look at here, but we have Cornelius, Miller, Kennedy, McGraw.
I'll throw this out here because we're having this discussion yesterday. An MLS team should look at Kennedy after this move because I think the second division Belgium, like this is someone who's played in second Bundesliga, played in Austria. I'm just saying I need to do some more research into this because I know it's a bit of a gray zone. But I don't know if you've been noticing, but Bilal Halbouni has been really good for the Whitecaps lately. And he's someone who is, like, Kennedy has way more experience in the second Bundesliga than Halbouni did because Halbouni, of course, moved there but then got injuries, the poor guy. Like, he had his knee injury. But Halbouni's been really good. And I kind of wonder if if one of the three Canadian MLS teams would take a look at Scott Kennedy. So
Halbouni's from London. He's from my neck of the woods. 24 years old. He's starting to find his feet a little bit.
Yeah, that's why I'm not sure. But I don't know if it was competitive. So I don't know if he's actually cap tied to Syria. Because if he's not, I don't know. That'd be.
It says he accepted a call up to Syria for 2 friendlies in the 2022 Jordan International Tournament. He made his debut as a substitute. So I believe those are 2 friendlies. So I don't think that doesn't cap tie him.
It'd be nice to have him in the mix too if he keeps playing the way he's been playing for the Whitecaps.
It's interesting. So there's a bit of a worry there at the center back position though. It kind of drops off. I mean, we have like the top 4, and then I throw Waterman there. I think McNaughton can be involved. I mean, I'd probably put McGraw.
McNaughton's just been so injured. McGraw's kind of the one to watch. The thing is, McGraw's had a bit of a weird season for Portland. Like he had a good Leagues Cup, but he's been just. Like he's kind of lost his starting spot with Portland too, so it is something like beyond that depth, like you'll have to keep an eye on because a few of those guys too, like we're surprised considering how inconsistent Austin has been. I was really surprised they didn't give Metzafero more of a look than they have because he had such a good year that last year. He's been having a good year this year. Of course, at Portland too, we'll keep an eye on Kisian Ferdinand, right? In terms of someone going on there, so. Lots of movement at the center back position as per usual to keep.
I also have Hebert over on the left hand side because I
might have to move him back.
Yeah, we just didn't have a lot of depth on the left, so I moved him over there, and he was playing there at the last time I did this, but he's been playing more in the middle, so I'd almost be more comfortable putting him back. But if you could think of another left back, but yeah, speaking of that left back depth chart, those are the 4 players we kind of highlighted. Was there a player I missed? Davies, Atakubi, Hebert, and then Edwards.
So yes, I'd almost move Edwards into that 3rd spot based on this one.
All right, and now going up to the midfield. Now, I mean, maybe Ahmed's there's the push though, but on the right hand side, Buchanan, Ahmed, Hoylett, and Corbianu, and we've got the left too. It's not necessarily they have to be on both sides, but I had Schaffelberg, Miller, Jaden Nelson, who just moved to the second Bundesliga, and Ryan Raposa, who's a little bit further down there. And I think you said you wanted to see more on the left hand side, so
no, I think that works.
You might, because it's Jesse Marsh. I mean. You could put Corbiano because he's a left footer, but although he never plays on the left. So I don't know. Maybe I should just keep it
Nelson,
where it was.
Yeah, just keep him there.
All right, midfield, and there you see a little bit of the depth coming there. On the more of the 8s, you got Kone, Schwaner, Osorio.
They might have to move Saliba up over Piet, the poor guy, after Saliba got called in.
Yeah, I think Piet's kind of on the way out. I'll put Piet over there. Then we got Laturi, who I think's a little bit on the way out. Saliba, Seeger, and then Eustachio for the 6s, and then ton of depth here. We got David, Tanny, Russell Rowe, Brim, Larin, Ugbo, Bear, and I mean I don't think Ugbo's that high. I don't even know where to slot Ugbo in, and this is promised David.
You gotta get your Davids in order.
There we go. So I mean he's a dual national, so maybe he should be sliding over here. Other dual nationals we have Jimmy Jebison, Kolyosho, Klenovich. We got Santi Lopez interview coming out too, so keep an eye on the channel. Coline, Goodman, Poss, Smith's probably on his way out, and I was added Halbouni. So any changes with the strikers quickly before we wrap up this stream?
No, I think it's reasonable. Maybe put Bear above Ugbo just for now, because Ugbo's been just getting his feet back. So other than that, not much to note.
All right, there's Josh's and Alex's somewhat depth chart without giving it too much thought. Snuck Franklin in there to make it 5. But all right, that is it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this stream, everybody. Drop a like on your way out. We'll catch you guys for the morning after stream on Wednesday, probably around the same time after we watch Canada take on Mexico. The game is on the One Soccer YouTube channel, so be sure to catch our pregame, which will be posted on the channel. Then there's the postgame as well. And we need to give a shout out to our sponsors, which I did not do at the beginning of the stream, but shout out to tonybet, who is the sponsor for today's stream and all of our streams going forward. So we really appreciate that there. Thank you guys so much. We will talk to you soon. Drop a like, drop a sub. Cheers, friends.
Ciao, ciao.